Okay, next up is actually a closely related presentation on Wildlife Science Collaborative for Offshore Wind. And Carl LoBue from the Nature Conservancy is going to fill us in on really kind of what that initiative is all about. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
It's the lower button.
Thanks. I keep that number that Ali just put in my cell phone. If you spend any time on the water, you'll run into a sea turtle or something. It's really great to do that. So if you didn't get it from her and do the same thing. So my name is Carl LoBue. I lead the ocean programs for the Nature Conservancy in New York. And the biggest thing happening in the ocean, in the Atlantic, off the East Coast, currently is offshore wind. It's a pretty important topic. I take my participation in it pretty seriously, both to manage thinking about ocean health and the future of our oceans, and also thinking about the need as a society to move ourselves off of our reliance on fossil fuel, both for a climate change initiative, but also for geopolitical security issues. NYSERDA, I'm going to use that acronym, and I'll probably slip. I try not to use acronyms. It stands for the New York State Energy Research and Development Association. Authority, thank you. NYSERDA set up a series of what they call TWIGs, technical working groups, back around 2017. I and four other environmental groups are represented on what's called the Environmental Technical Working Group. And we help to advise New York State on ways that they can think about advancing offshore wind, both where and how, in a way that's most compatible with ocean health issues. And there's also another twig that focuses on fisheries that has a lot of representation from the New York fishing industry, and there's another one related to labor and supply chains. As the Environmental Technical Working Group, one of the things that we do is host every other year meetings, conferences on the state of the science to bring everybody up to speed on the newest findings and knowledge around the science of offshore wind and wildlife interactions. The first one of those was in 2018. There was about the same number of participants. It was in Woodbury. It was well attended by a lot of scientists and managers from the other side of the Atlantic, where offshore wind has been a thing for 3 decades, as well as from the East Coast. And after 2 days of presentations and discussions, we had about an hour and a half as a group to have a discussion and really think about what was discussed at that meeting, learn from the Europeans on things that they wished that they had done differently. And one of the topics that came up in that group discussion back in 2018 was that there were some shortcomings in the way things were set up at that time. And that was, if states were going to support research and monitoring to help us understand and learn more about wildlife and the potential interactions with offshore winds, they were going to be focused on the needs of their state and the geographies of their states. If the developers were going to support it, it was going to be focused around the areas that they were going to develop in their particular projects. And at the time, the federal government wasn't really heavily invested. That was a different administration, if you can recall that one. And so the other issues that weren't really easily resolved was in that scenario where you had all these desperate projects happening, We were having projects that weren't coordinated with each other, where there was no data standardization, where you had researchers either at academic institutions or because maybe they were funded by industry being unable to share or unwilling to share information in a timely way and report out information in a timely way that could be used to help inform management. And so all of these needs called for creating something new. And at that meeting, it was the idea of setting up a completely new entity that could help pool financial resources from both public and private, from federal and state, help to set data standards, help to house data, help to make data transparency standards. All came up, and it honestly took a couple of years of meeting, facilitation, and what we did was we created what's called the Regional Wildlife Science Collaborative, and I think I got a slide. And so this is the mission of the collaborative. I sit on the steering committee, which is why I thought it would be a good idea to introduce you all to this. And the steering committee consists of 3 representatives of federal agencies, 3 representatives of environmental community, which is where I fit in, 3 representatives of offshore wind development companies, and 3 states. And we have an ENGO caucus. There are folks in this room who are part of that caucus. What's happening at the collaborative right now is there's a series of, I should say that it is, the steering committees all contribute to the finances. It is managed, if you haven't heard of the regional ocean councils, there's one in the Mid-Atlantic and one in New England. The regional ocean councils are actually staffing the collaborative, and they are geared up to be moving large sums of money like I was talking about, for research and monitoring related to wildlife and offshore wind potential interactions. There's 6 working groups that are developing research and monitoring science plans around birds and bats, sea turtles, habitats and ecosystems, marine mammals, protected fish, and technology. And these are somewhat sequenced, and the ones that are furthest along are marine mammals and birds. All of these are expected to be completed before the end of the year. Technology might not be its own thing. It might just get embedded in the other plans, and there could be more working groups. These working groups are staffed by academics, contributions from academics, again, from both sides of the Atlantic, as well as consultants, both agencies, state and federal agencies. You'll notice that there's not that many fish on this list. There's a sister organization to the Regional Wildlife Science Collaborative called the Responsible Offshore Science Alliance. At the same time that this organization was being set up, it was recognized by NOAA and the fishing industry in particular that our fishing industry held a lot of information that could be useful to help understand the interactions, potential interactions between offshore wind and the things that they fish for. That information tends to be sensitive to the fishermen because their livelihoods rely on keeping some of that proprietary. And so the two organizations communicate with each other regularly. I'm also a science advisor for ROSA, and I know there are people in this room as well who are also science advisors for ROSA. So the organizations are set up pretty similarly. But there's also some differences. One of the main differences is how the boards are set up. ROSA is an independent 501c3. RWSC is sort of quasi-government because it's run through the regional councils. So I already mentioned the science plans. What I basically want you to take away from this talk is that there is this website. And there's a lot of information that you can learn from this. If you want to be part of the ENGO caucus, hit me up and I'll explain it to you. The website is regularly updated and the science plans will be posted. The other thing I want you to know, if you're in the business of research and monitoring, there will soon be some RFPs for projects that will be funded through the entity, and those will be well circulated through the communities, but they'll also be posted on the website when they come out. Thanks a lot.